Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selective videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.
More than 2 million at-home COVID-19 tests are getting recalled due to a high rate of false positive results. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration says it's a Class 1 recall, the most urgent type. The tests come from the brand Ellume. Regulators say false positives could lead to a delayed diagnosis or treatment of the actual cause of a person's illness. There have been 35 reports of false positives. No deaths have been reported. The FDA says the reliability of negative test results is not affected. The faulty tests were manufactured between February 24th and August 11th and were distributed from April 13th to August 26th. Those who have received a positive result with an Ellume test are advised to have a follow-up test. The Biden administration awarded nearly $232 million to Ellume in February to produce its at-home tests. And this fall, the administration announced billions more dollars in funding to help make more tests available. And a pharmacy in Virginia gave the wrong vaccine formula to over 100 kids aged 5 to 11. They used the vaccine intended for individuals aged 12 and up. The state has since removed the pharmacy from its vaccination program. NTD's Allison Lee has more.
The Loudoun County Health Department confirmed that the TED Pharmacy in Aldie, Virginia, last week vaccinated around 112 kids aged 5 to 11 using a reduced amount of the adult vaccine instead of the pediatric vaccine. The only vaccine authorized for children aged 5 to 11 is a special formulation that contains a 10 microgram dose, while the formula for individuals 12 and up contains a 30 microgram dose. Loudoun County Health Department Director Dr. David Goodfriend says the TED Pharmacy attempted to provide a proper dose by administering about a third of the dose for individuals 12 and up. He told the Washington Post the pharmacy was not authorized to do this, and when the volume of vaccine is reduced, it is difficult to ensure that the dosage is correct. A parent who vaccinated her daughter at this pharmacy told a local news outlet that workers at the pharmacy diluted the dose for people 12 and up. The health department director wrote in a letter this week that the pharmacy has been removed from both state and federal COVID-19 vaccination programs, and that the pharmacy has also transferred possession of all remaining COVID-19 vaccine inventory in the local health department. The health department is recommending that parents whose kids got the vaccine at the pharmacy on November 3rd and 4th review the CDC guidance and contact their healthcare provider to determine when to continue the vaccination process. Allison Lee, NTD News.
And now to San Francisco, where we hear some of the stories of those grappling with the world and its changes as it emerges from the pandemic. First responders, medical professionals, teachers, and people from all walks of life came out to have their say. We hear more from NTD's Cynthia Kai.
Hundreds of people have gathered here at the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco to protest vaccine mandates. This is one of many protests happening across the country as part of the national-wide walkout. California recently adopted vaccine mandates for children aged 5 to 11, in addition to existing vaccine mandates for select jobs and statewide mask mandates. Elected officials say vaccine mandates are meant to reduce transmission and boost immunity.
Vaccine mandates for COVID shots are illegal. There's still only 3 emergency use authorization shots on the market. The 4th one, called Comirnaty, is not fully approved and it's not on the market. The reason it's not on the market is because BioNTech has full liability for injuries, disabilities, and deaths, and they are scared to put that on the market because they will have to pay so much money they could go out of business. So what they're going to do is, when the shot is fully approved for children, they're going to put it on the children's schedule, and that gives the manufacturers full liability protection no matter who it's injected into, children or adults. So they're going to be using our children as pawns to protect themselves from liability.
People attending the protest say they disagree with the government's mandates.
I'm seeing a lot of my friends and family being forced to vaccinate to work for jobs and being put in a corner. And they say that you have other options, but then your options are few and far between and you're losing your job anyway. So that's the big reason why I came.
Some say the mandates violate their freedom of choice.
The more mandates that come down the line, eventually those people that think it's right now will find something that they don't believe in, that they don't want to do. And possibly by that time, it'll be too late because all of us have just kind of gone with the flow and did what our leaders told us to do.
And I have a 7-year-old son, and they're trying to force him to get a vaccine, and I don't believe in that. This is America, not Russia or communist China. And if we don't stand up, we're going to be the frog in the pot of water boiling and wondering how we ended up as a communist country.
Other people expressed that the mandates go against their religious beliefs.
What I've discovered is that there's something called natural law, which is above any jurisdiction of any government, and it's even above, the republic, and it started, centuries ago. We have innate God-given rights, and so we only answer to God. We don't answer to a government. Government is lower in jurisdiction.
Event organizers estimated around 500 people were present at the Golden Gate Bridge. However, they said more people were unable to enter due to unexpected road closures.
They wanted to make this look like a tiny event that did not have the support of the blue-collar and white-collar workers. And so they systematically started closing the exits off the Golden Gate Bridge. As crunch time occurred here, they closed all of the bathrooms.
NTD reporters covering the event encountered heavy traffic and road closures near the bridge. Police barred media entry from certain areas. More protests are expected later this month throughout the state and other states, including Michigan and Arizona. Cynthia Kai, NTD News, California.
And the world's largest pharmaceutical company is breaking up. Johnson & Johnson is spinning off its over-the-counter consumer health products unit into a separate company. It's J&J's biggest shakeup in its 135-year history. The spinoff will keep making products like Benadryl, Band-Aids, and Tylenol. We don't know its name yet. And J&J will now focus only on prescription drugs and medical devices, including cancer treatments and vaccines, including its COVID-19 shot. Two other big companies, GE and Toshiba, also announced this week they are splitting their businesses. One possible reason for the trend is big corporations are under pressure to simplify. In the healthcare space, companies are trying to separate the slow and steady consumer products business from the high-risk, high-reward work of developing and marketing drugs. GSK and Pfizer plan to spin off their joint consumer health business next year. And now we look into the debate surrounding the different types of protection from the virus, specifically natural immunity versus the vaccine. The CDC supports a policy that puts people with natural immunity at a disadvantage in society. But does the health agency have data to support this? NTD's Kevin Hogan brings us more on a FOIA request that may shed some light on this question.
Attorney Aaron Series' firm submitted the FOIA request on behalf of the Informed Consent Action Network. They sought the following information from the CDC. Any documented case of someone who is not vaccinated, contracted COVID, recovered, contracted COVID again, and then spread it to another person. Essentially data on the effectiveness of natural immunity. The CDC's response was that this information is not collected. Siri questions how the CDC can support a policy limiting the freedoms of people with natural immunity without having collected this data.
They seem to have the ability to track all the data that they want when it supports their policy objectives. And I would submit that it's the burden of the government to support that a policy that would impinge, dare say crush, the individual and civil rights of people across the United States. The burden is on the government to show the data to support that policy.
NTD asked the CDC why it doesn't collect this type of data. The agency hasn't responded by airtime. The law firm said to the CDC, please provide evidence that supports the policy or lift the restrictions.
Because if they can't show that, then they are basically saying all of those folks should be fired from their jobs, kicked out of school, separated from the military, even though we don't have any proof. We don't have proof that any one of those people has ever become reinfected and transmitted the coronavirus. That's incredible.
A CDC study in August found that people who contracted COVID and then took the vaccine were twice as protected than those who contracted COVID but didn't get the vaccine. Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
Americans are quitting their jobs in record numbers. The Labor Department's latest figures released today show that 4.4 million workers quit in September. A hiring consultant tells NTD business host Paul Graney what's behind this trend.
The Labor Department's job openings and labor turnover survey says 4.4 million U.S. workers quit their jobs in September, a record high. That's about 3% of the nation's workforce. In comparison, around 4.3 million workers quit in August.
Over 70% of the people who are separating from work are quitting their jobs. Less than 10 years ago, there was 60% of people who were laid off or terminated or downsized. Only 40% voluntarily left a position. So it's 60% higher than it's been, and that's only now that's been a gradual change, but acutely over the last 2 years.
Quitting has risen particularly sharply in industries that require in-person services, such as restaurants, hotels, retail, and factories. 56,000 people in the arts, entertainment, and recreation industry quit their jobs. And 47,000 people in the other services category left their jobs.
And the biggest thing is there's no question, workers are looking for more compensation, more fair compensation. You see that in the news all the time. But they're also looking for a better life-work balance, life-work integration.
The Labor Department report also shows there were 10.4 million job openings on the last business day in September. This is similar to the level from the month before. The number of available jobs has topped 10 million for 4 consecutive months. By comparison, around 7.7 million people were unemployed and looking for a job in October.
The labor shortage isn't going away. There's going to be a shortage of skilled labor for at least the next 10 to 15 years. And at the same time, if companies don't fix their cultures and create a better candidate experience, there's going to be a revolving door.
Last week's jobs report showed that employers stepped up their hiring in October, adding 531,000 jobs. Meanwhile, the unemployment rate fell from 4.8% to 4.6%.
The Kyle Rittenhouse trial is coming to an end. Today, the judge and legal teams hashed out the court's rules for closing arguments. And the prosecution proposed additional charges they want the jury to consider. Prosecutors tried adding second-degree versions of the first-degree murder charges. Some legal observers say prosecutors have struggled to refute Rittenhouse's self-defense claims, so a jury might be more willing to convict on lesser charges. The judge so far hasn't accepted any lesser charges, but he will allow the jury to consider whether Rittenhouse provoked one of the men he killed in alleged self-defense. This gives the jury an additional option to consider for a possible conviction. Local elections in New York City wrap up with Democrat Eric Adams set to be the next mayor. But not all local races have been decided yet. One is especially tight, and it appears that dead people voted. NTD's Arian Pazdar spoke with one of the candidates.
Monday is when we open up all the absentee
Republican Brian Fox has a narrow lead of just over 200 votes in the city council race against incumbent Democrat Justin Brannan. Private investigators found that 11 registered Democrats who received ballots are dead.
I know that it's not quite common to have so many dead voters in a local election, in a local race like in District 43. So my main concern is to make sure that every valid and legal vote is counted.
Fox's campaign manager told me the Board of Elections confirmed that 11 dead Democrats received ballots. According to Fox, the number of dead voters is even growing. So is it just a coincidence?
Quite possibly could be a bigger agenda. I don't want to say that that's certainly the case. I wouldn't be 100% confident in saying that. That would be a larger indication for fraud. And again, I'm not accusing my opponent of doing that right now.
His campaign manager said they want to further investigate why dead people received ballots. According to him, the Democrats' campaign has not supported the investigations yet. Democrat Justin Brannan didn't get back for comment before broadcast. Arian Pazdar, NTD News, New York.
2 massive taxi driver strikes within 2 weeks in a mega city in China's southwest. Thousands of taxis packed the roads, honking. Same time, same place.
Thousands of taxis honking. Videos released on social media show a river of yellow taxis in southwestern China's Chongqing on Thursday. Taxi drivers, on strike, protesting what they say are excessive company charges. The drivers complain the taxi company they work with takes over 70% of their gross income, and they have to pay costs out of pocket, leaving them with almost nothing.
We've been acting on this for some time. We post photos of our gross income to the social media platform WeChat. Those are facts. We have proof that the operating conditions are so bad, and thus we're asking the taxi company to lower their fees.
The driver told NTD it's the second strike this month. The first was early November. According to some insiders, after the first strike, the Chongqing municipality worried there could be more strikes, especially during the Communist Party's top officials meeting earlier this week. So they ordered the taxi company to waive their drivers' fees for the first half of November. But the company simply ignored the order. That led to the second strike. While more videos emerged online, Chinese mainstream media remained silent. It's not yet clear whether the regime will punish the company and the taxi drivers.
A Danish artist is asking Hong Kong authorities for assurances that he won't be prosecuted under the city's national security law. The sculptor is planning to take his work back to Denmark. It's a statue called Pillar of Shame, which depicts the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre. Here are the details.
The creator of a statue that commemorates protesters killed during the Tiananmen Square crackdown says he wants immunity from Hong Kong's national security law so that he can take the sculpture back to Denmark. Artist Jens Galschutt made the request in an open letter on Friday, saying that his presence in the city was necessary for the operation to relocate the Pillar of Shame to go well. Galschutt said he wanted reassurances that he would not be prosecuted under a sweeping national security law that was imposed by Beijing in 2020. The legislation is aimed at punishing acts of subversion, secession, terrorism, and collusion with foreign forces. The 8-meter-tall, 2-ton copper sculpture depicts dozens of torn and twisted bodies and is set to mark China's crackdown in 1989 on pro-democracy protesters in Tiananmen Square. It's been on display at the University of Hong Kong for more than 2 decades and was loaned by the Danish sculptor to a local civil society group, the Hong Kong Alliance in Support of Patriotic Democratic Movements in China, in perpetuity. However, in October, the school asked the group to remove the statue from its premises and set a deadline for it, which expired a month ago. That was all after the alliance had already disbanded weeks before, with some of its members being accused of national security offenses. The university, Hong Kong's Security Bureau, and the Immigration Department did not immediately respond to requests for comment.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Don't forget to catch all of our programs on TV. NTD Evening News is on every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Find your local NTD channel at ntd.com/TV.